Welcome to another episode of TNT Unpacked. We are your hosts, Rochelle Amor and Justin Collimo.
Hello.
Today we're speaking to Francis Escayg of Cause and Effect, which is a non-for-profit organization that he and his wife founded. We're going to talk to him today about caregiving because he has a lot of experience in that regard, but I'll let him tell you himself. Welcome.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Thank you for being here.
Okay, well, actually, the nonprofit came from a desire, a much bigger desire, actually. It's to provide work opportunities and assisted living for persons with disabilities. But the research pointed to the fact that we are a very apathetic society. The systems are not in place to allow us to really move forward. We wouldn't gain traction if we were to build those communities and work-for-work situations. So I decided to bring my skill sets, filmmaking, music, writing. My wife is a singer, writer, performer. And we brought all those skill sets together to create content that will speak to our society's lack of humanity, the lack of system in place that will facilitate an inclusive society, a truly inclusive society where persons with disabilities and special needs can live, work, and be respected and be the best that they can be for the rest of their life. So that's where it started. But yes, we do have first-hand experience dealing with caregiving through Isaiah.
Right. Tell us about Isaiah.
Isaiah came early. He was 6 weeks early. He wasn't breathing when he came. He scored very low on the APGAR test, which they give all these kids. He was very floppy. He didn't have the strength to nurse, so we had to do the dropper thing and promote a bigger dropper, all these different types of things with this little boy. At 9 months, we went back to his pediatrician, and the pediatrician was very good, Dr. Bratt Sr.
Right.
He basically held our hands through the first 9 months, and at 9 months he said, look, Isaiah hasn't met any of his milestones. You need to get worried now. And that was when the earth fell from beneath our feet, the heart ran up to your chest, up into your throat, and everything turned old mass at that point in time. So we had to now figure out how we were going to do this. He got a diagnosis, incontinentia pigmenti, which is basically a gene mutation that takes place in utero. Males don't usually make it. It's usually something that females have. It affects your teeth, your eyes, skin, hair, and there's also delayed development, right? So based on those things, they were able to say, well, yeah, okay, this looks like IP with Isaiah, right? So Isaiah he turned 12 on Thursday. He isn't speaking. All right, he communicates, but he isn't talking. He has a curved spine, he has physical issues, and he also has, so we know he's someone who we will have to care for the rest of his life. I am a guy who has seen many sunrises, right? So I am anxious at this stage in my life. I am very anxious about what the future will hold for him if I were to kick the bucket, because I'm not going to pass away. I'm going to kick the bucket. Okay, there is a difference.
He's not going quietly.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going fighting, all right? Because, well, this work is what it's all about. This is why I get up every day. Isaiah is the reason. And that is how Cause and Effect came about, and this is the mix with Isaiah, So Isaiah is very challenging. I mean, Isaiah is a guy, he will climb, and he will know how to come back down. So he will fall. Isaiah is a man who will run through here and he will pull down everything that he can. Or he will just come and sit down on the chair and just sit back and look at everything. You never know what Isaiah is going to do, right? He has a lot of allergies. He has irregular sleeping patterns. It was never a full night's rest with Isaiah. And if he sleeps, it's because he's sick, right? And when he gets up, somebody has to get up with him. So I've lost a lot of blood. So has my wife, over the years, tending to Isaiah. And that forms the basis for everything that we do. What is going to happen to Isaiah when we die? Caregiving is very important, not hustle giving, not hustlers doing caregiving, caregiving, right? We have assumed the position to create that type of awareness and education for our population to understand what it can be like so that we can build empathy. And we say we work with disabilities, but we know that the value systems, our humanity, this is what is in all of us. So we know that doing the work for disabilities will help for anything else, because it's about really lifting ourselves up as human beings to be more caring, loving, giving, understanding, not judging. You know, you see somebody coming in the bank, like my wife will have to go into the bank with Isaiah. But I must say, you know, we have a lot of really, really good people. You know, Isaiah will come into the bank and everybody will just make way. You know, because Isaiah will just come through there like a bull and and he started to hit himself and everybody like, whoa, okay, go to the front, go to the top of the line, and that, you know, right? But there are different types of disabilities that are hidden.
Yeah.
Someone will walk into that same bank and people wouldn't know. They will be taken advantage of because somebody might deem them to be dotish or slow or what's wrong with you? How you could do something like that, you know?
Yeah.
Because the person looks typical, you know. But that's a disability. It's a hidden disability as well. So we have a lot of work to do, and caregiving is very important. And I have to say that a lot of the people who do some of the caregiving work are people who are looking for a job, right? So it's not necessarily people who are always trained in that regard, right? So you find that there's a lack of understanding. We get back to the same thing again. There's a lack of understanding. There's a lack of compassion. They don't know how to deal with child or a person with special needs or a senior citizen who may be having a meltdown. Right?
Yeah, I remember seeing a video on Facebook. I don't know if you've seen it. It's like not a hidden camera, but it's like footage of a caregiver kind of like abusing an elderly person.
I've seen several of those.
Yeah.
The most recent one I saw was in Barbados. I don't know if you saw that one. Yeah, there was one in Barbados. I mean, they were basically slapping the woman with a cell phone and having fun about her, you know, really putting her, and she was on the ground, I think, trying to get up, and they just kept hitting her down and making joke and fun. And
yeah, it's so shocking. Who would do that, you know?
I know.
I mean, I think it comes back to what Francis is speaking about, empathy.
Yeah.
And I mean, disability is something that will affect people at all ages.
Right.
But of course, when we get a little bit older, things stop working the way they should. And when you're different in that way because your hip's broken or you're not hearing as well, or you're half blind, people tend to treat you differently because they just don't. They can't imagine themselves in that position.
People take advantage of you.
And
you know.
they really treat you as if you're not as good as them or not as important as them, and that's where the lines come in. It's so funny. It's like with anything else, any other kind of discrimination. But I think, like you're saying, Francis, when it comes to disability especially, it's important because there are people out there who are paid to care for people.
Of course, yeah.
And they don't know what they're doing.
That's right. It's a very serious situation.
Yeah, I must mention also Dr. James Bratt, who did our first mental health episode.
Yeah.
He recently founded a firm called Age Caribbean that actually does caregiver training workshops. So if you're
great.
listening,
That's fantastic.
yeah, if you're listening and you have a caregiving company or a home, or you yourself are a caregiver at home and you need some
That's
help,
awesome.
you know, you can always get in touch at agecaribbean.com. But speaking of that, Francis, talk to us a little bit about the at-home care, because I don't think people understand how time-consuming and exhausting it can be caring for anyone full-time.
That's right. Well, let me tell you, I mean, okay, so starting with Isaiah, and I'll deal with Isaiah for now because it translates. He doesn't sleep. Okay? When he does sleep, it's for a few hours, or he might sleep depending on whether he's ill or whatever. But you have to do everything for Isaiah. We have to feed Isaiah. Isaiah doesn't speak, so we have to read and try to understand what is making him upset. Is he hungry? Does he have a headache? Is his tummy hurting him? Is he feeling like he's coming down with the flu? What is going on with Isaiah? So the first few years, and it's still a work in progress, it's just that we got a little better over the years trying to figure out exactly what it could be. But it was always this guessing game and this frustration and this anxiety and this running around like a chicken with your neck cut off trying to figure out what is wrong with him. You will pull out the Panadol, you will pull out the allergy medicine, you will try to burp him, you'll just try to do everything that you can. You will bathe him to try and calm him down. But that is very frustrating. It takes a lot of energy, it takes a lot of time, and you as the caregiver not getting enough sleep in the night and have to get up during the day to do the work to bring the money to keep things going, it becomes that much more difficult.
It sounds almost impossible because
it
you're not
sounds
it sounds really
sleeping.
crazy.
Yeah.
It sounds impossible. Now, we also have two other kids after Isaiah. Well, before they came, it was just Isaiah, my wife, and I. And that was by itself,
Challenging.
Very challenging.
To put it mildly.
Yeah. Now the girls here, and Isaiah's getting bigger and he loves them. So there are other people for him to, right? We could tell the girls, okay, try and hold on Isaiah for a little bit while I try to do something. You know what I mean?
That's the usefulness of kids, right?
Well, yeah. Well, yeah. Now, I want to talk about something here too that is also very, very important. The cost.
Oh, yes.
Isaiah has a lot of dietary challenges, right? And we have to make sure that he has certain types of food. I keep wondering, God forbid one day we have one of those natural disaster things, you know what I mean? That's a very real thing. These are the things that parents with children who are very challenged have to live with. You worry about what this child is going to eat. Do I stock up my pantry with all his food now and be like this kind of mad people just counting on the days when something could happen? You know what I mean?
Building a bunker and all that.
Exactly, right? So, you're kind of like in this kind of zone, but then you have to let go of it and say, look, we had to have faith that something going to happen out here. We just had to do what we can, But Isaiah's a man who like to drink water. He want color, he want taste. All right, that typical kid, he's 12 years old, right? But then when he has something, you have to give him the allergy medication afterwards. Now, we have been pushing the boundaries and the limits with what we could give him just to see if it will help the system tolerate more.
Yeah.
Isaiah was a guy, the first time he heard a carnival band, he fell asleep.
What?
Yes. His system went into shock.
Oh.
Right? His system went into shock and he just knocked out. The first time we carried him by the beach and the water hit him, he went into shock and he fell asleep in my arms in the water.
Right.
Wow.
Right? So he's a guy who has, over the years, we've been introducing him slowly to things so that his system can accommodate it.
Again, it's about empathy and not understanding and just not knowing. Like, imagine going to the beach and you can't even deal with that. That's
It's too much stimuli. It's
too much.
It's too much for the system,
And you have to constantly keep watch. That's scary because you don't know what. Say he's watching TV and something comes on and that's it.
Yeah. He also gets seizures, right? So that is something that we weren't aware of until maybe just a few years ago. But then one day my wife said, I remember when Isaiah was just like, I was feeding him or something, and he just started shaking, and she kind of wrapped him up in the blanket, wondering if it was cold. He was cold because he's a guy, he cannot take heat. So he always has to be, for the most part, in an air-conditioned environment. And then I said, well, maybe that was a seizure he was having. Maybe when he was a baby like that, it was a seizure, The thing about it is his seizures aren't regular, so it's not predictable. So we always get caught off guard. Now we try to look at what would lead up to a seizure.
Right.
He would start to get really irritable, so then we start to prepare, and then he will bounce back, he wouldn't get a seizure. So we really don't know what it is, so we don't want to give him medication, right? So it's very challenging. The cost for therapy, well, my wife was so inspired when Isaiah was born that she and an occupational therapist, they created the first occupational therapy clinic, if you want to call it, in Trinidad and Tobago, to give Isaiah therapy. He benefited.
Sorry, if you don't know what occupational therapy is and you're listening, we will have an episode on that next month for our mental health series, so you can listen in.
Beautiful, right? So Isaiah benefited from the interventions that he got, but then my wife got burnt out again. So she collapsed after 3 months. I was just in the middle of releasing my first feature film that people spend money for me to make. My book that I was published by Macmillan Caribbean, I was just about to embark on marketing and promoting those two things, film and book, and I had to just drop everything and deal with Isaiah because my wife couldn't go any further. So those things take a toll on your ability to deliver as well to people who you promise you're going to do something.
Right.
Because any day, anything could happen at any time.
It makes it impossible to almost have a regular job. I know like people who care for older persons as well, like, your parent gets sick and you say you're working in the bank and your parent gets sick and all of a sudden you can't go to work. I know people who've lost their jobs because of that.
That's right.
So maybe it's a blessing really that you work the way you work.
That's right, it is. So it's challenging in that regard. It also takes a toll on the relationship.
Right.
I'll tell you that straight up. We've had our moments. The strain becomes quite a bit to bear because you're talking about two human beings, two adults who have dreams and goals.
Right.
My wife, she started off wanting to be this singer. She had her vision of being what she wanted to do.
I heard she has a beautiful voice.
She does, if I may say so. Laura, you got it. You got it. Right? And having a child, and I don't want to say it's having the child, you know, but it's not being able to pursue the things that you want to do.
Right.
But I must say she has a lot of grace. She has walked with it. I know it was a struggle, but she has walked with it, and we try to find a way for her to have her say in, you know, at this time, now that she can maybe breathe a little better, you know, and that the girls are here and Isaiah isn't all that consuming all the time, although he is. I think we grow into it too as well. It's like that. We know a lot of families that have been on the rocks because of having to deal with that extra challenge. I don't want to say it's the child with special needs that will cause that, but human beings have their capabilities and their capacities, the amount that they can take.
Anybody will. I mean, it's not just a child with special needs. It's a parent with Alzheimer's, or it's a grandparent who had a stroke. Even if you don't have a family member who is born with disability, anyone at any point in time, God forbid, car accident or stroke, it can happen.
That's right. We were also taking care of my mom at the time.
Oh, wow.
Who started to decline after my dad passed away. And she's on the Parkinson's kind of, so it's been challenging. It was very challenging until we were able to get her into a home, and we are quite happy where she is now. But we know firsthand, dealing with Isaiah and dealing with my mom, the challenges on both sides of the spectrum, from birth to death, right? What it's like. And we've seen caregivers come and go, and we know that we need to do a lot more work in preparing caregivers to take care of our precious and our loved ones, right? Because it's just a hustle. I think it's just a hustle for a lot of people, and that's unfair to either a child with special needs or to a person who has a disability.
Yeah. So what are some of the specific goals for cause and effect?
The biggest goal is to create a world of work or assisted work and assisted living communities. This is where Isaiah, we feel, will be able to thrive long after we've gone, with all the right people who have all the right training to give care, to encourage them, to keep them doing activities that will make them, you know, be the best that they can be. That's the ultimate. It's also to be sustainable. It's also to transform perspectives in Trinidad and Tobago about persons with disabilities, so that we can build a more empathetic and build more understanding in our society. I have asked myself a lot of times if the work that we're doing is having any impact. I ask myself that question every day. Sometimes, you know, we see posts from people. You know, people reach out to us and we know, we're doing something here. Something is happening. But for the most part, you're walking down a path that seems to be this very lonely road without any type of support. You know, you have a family to feed. This is what we do. It's very difficult getting corporations to come on board, because I think social responsibility, which has now been branded corporate social responsibility, and I think that's for a reason, because it's about the corporations. It's not really about social responsibility. I will say that. There are companies who give. I know it's like that, but it's really about promoting their company. Social responsibility is something that's different. It really is something different. And we're just about to embark on a social responsibility initiative through our company, which will help to make us, we hope, more sustainable. That's the main goal of Cause and Effect. It is to transform persons' perspectives. And we see ourselves as a media company. And I want to touch on this. The media has largely ignored persons with disabilities. All right? It's an entity that is about selling their media, the newspaper, or getting people to tune into their channels. It's about a lot of sensationalism. So we feel that the work that we're doing here will eventually become a media engine that promotes a different type of news source, almost like a PBS. This is the vision that we have for Cause and Effect, to create a type of PBS channel where, you know, it's all about issues, social issues. It's not about fighting or anything, but it's about the opportunity for growth and development, and the opportunity for typically developed persons to understand how they can benefit when we apply empathy and a greater understanding for persons with disabilities. So
that's amazing that you have all these ideas and goals for Cause and Effect. Talk to us a little bit about where it stands right now in terms of, I mean, imagine that you've had a lot of interaction with the disability unit at the Ministry of the People and Social Development.
Not really.
No?
Next question.
I was going to ask if you can give people an idea of the resources that are available.
All right, I'll tell you this is from our perspective. Okay, Cause and Effect is now going into its 4th year of operation, right? I think in the first 3 years, what we saw, this is like the slow boat to China. We had a bit of a challenge, really, being able to make people understand what it is we do. The system of philanthropy in Trinidad and Tobago, I want to say charity. You throw some crumbs, okay, you know what, we're making some money, we're going to help you out. No, we have people in our society who give with a good heart. I'm not talking about those people. I'm talking about corporations. I'm talking about governments. The ones who implement all these different types of grants and stuff, okay? They can understand if we are giving therapy to 50 children and we want to give 50 more from a depressed area, the people who cannot afford it, they understand that.
Right.
They will fund something like that because they say, okay, we understand that. So you can see that they have a good heart. They understand that they want to help these other 50 kids.
Right.
Right? What do? We create content. We create content that speaks to the truth. Now, this truth is not revolutionary in the sense where it's not contentious. It doesn't have to be. But media is, I want to say it's a very tricky thing that if you put money behind Cause and Effect, who's going to be embarking on creating a number of different videos, you don't know what we're going to be saying in the videos.
Right.
It can be something that you will not be in alignment with and your company will not be in alignment with. So
Right.
we, to a large extent, we believe that we stand alone and we're going to do this work and prove over time that the way to transform perspectives is not to point fingers and condemn, but it's more to always show the benefit to the wider society,
Right.
and to always promote the opportunity for growth and development.
I feel like everybody should be behind that message. That should not be in such conflict with the sponsors. And
Can you give us an example of something a sponsor, like a corporation, might not be in alignment with?
Well, okay, we've had an experience with a particular potential sponsor, one who believed that what we were doing and what they were doing is the same thing. Okay, so they viewed us as a competitor.
Ah, right.
All right? They viewed us as a competitor. So we have that aspect of it.
crab and barrel syndrome.
Right.
This comes up every single episode we have.
Right? So, I mean, it's very... Now, we also have a few organizations, who continue to give us a little support every time we have something to do. And we are nurturing that. We are extremely grateful for that, right? But it took us 4 years. I don't know if it's supposed to be any different. I mean, I know of other NGOs who've been around 25 years, 35 years, 40 years, and they get everything. I guess maybe time.
Yeah.
Maybe time makes the ultimate decision about, okay, this person has, weathered the storms and we see what they've been doing over the years so we can help them. Maybe that's how it works. But the world is changing rapidly. We believe that we don't have all that time. It shouldn't have to take that long. Our boy is 12 years old. We have other kids his age. They have other persons 20-something who have already hit the ceiling where they cannot get a job. Those parents worry non-stop.
Yeah.
Okay? If you know something, you do something about it. All right? Isaiah brought that specific opportunity to us to do something, and we have enabled it. We're making this thing work to the best of our ability. Getting the funds to do the things is difficult, but here's what. I have my camera, and that's all I need.
Yeah.
That and the will to go out and do the work. So, we have really done a lot. We partnered with Special Olympics. We have our Special Olympians who've been going to the international games 33 plus years. Wow. They come back home after every Olympic game and nobody knows anything.
Nope.
They come back home with gold, silver, bronze, just like the Bovels, the Kishon Walcotts, the Borrell, the Cleopatra Borrells, just like everybody else. And nobody knows anything. So we see that as an injustice. Yeah. And we have stepped in to say, look, you know what? We're going to invest our resources in Special Olympics to feature our Special Olympians because they need to be recognized. Yeah.
So part of the content that you create would be, for example, maybe like a video on their performance at the Olympics or something like that, like to kind of raise awareness? Or?
Well, what we are now working on a 5-part series. We use values of respect, appreciation. We have, I think, is commitment, dedication, and inclusion. Those are the 5. Each of the videos are about 6 minutes, no more than 6 minutes long. But when you put it all together, it's about an inclusive society. So we have respect and appreciation, and those speak to we haven't gone to the Olympics.
Right.
We film them in training. We interview their coaches. We talk to their parents. We talk to those athletes who can speak. And we get a sense of their longing for appreciation. Their longing to be a part of our society that is not including them in anything.
Right.
All right? I mean, I just started filming and we didn't know we were going to be ending up with these 5 values that we're going to be focusing on. But that's what a lot of the footage pointing toward right now. So
I find it interesting that, you know, they're longing for inclusion, but you're talking about their coaches and their parents, and those people must also feel excluded.
When we said we were going to commit to Special Olympics, I don't think we knew what we were really getting into, right? It was one of those hard gestures. You know what? Nah, that can't happen. You matter what? Winning gold, silver, and bronze, and nobody know. No. We're going to do that work.
Yeah.
When we started to do the work, right? It was quite a lot. And we were like, what did we get ourselves into here, boy? This is, I mean, how are we going to live?
Yeah.
How are we going to ever finish this and really make sense out of this if we can't even feed our family? What madness is this? What we doing? But as we went along, the clouds started to part, and, you know, a way started appearing, and all of a sudden in working with the footage, you know, you started to see the humanity. These coaches, they came on for the same reasons we came on. These are guys who, one particular coach, I mean, you know, he talked about a family who would come from Point 14 every Saturday morning to behind the bridge in Port of Spain, St. Paul, somewhere, a grounds in the back there, to bring their son for football training with 2 other kids.
Yeah.
Every Saturday morning. And he said, but if these people could travel every Saturday morning from deep south to come up in Port of Spain behind the bridge to bring the kid for football training, I think I found my calling. I could do this.
Yeah.
Right? So it was like, you know, one influenced the other, and all the coaches have a story like that. So they're in it. Some of them have jobs. They work with the Ministry of Sport. Some of them on their own. Some of them have other things that they do. But it's just human beings who have committed to try to help and to do the best that they can for these other souls.
They're caregivers.
They're caregivers.
That's what they are. I also think that it's important to recognize caregivers as a community that deserves the appreciation and the empathy that people with disability or people with illness also deserve.
That's right.
For example, in the UK, there's an organization called Carers UK. It's an NGO that's basically funded and geared towards supporting carers and caregivers completely. This is like millions of people who come together sharing advice. They offer respite care, which is when you're tired, like when your wife kind of burnt out, which I imagine any of us would be. You're not sleeping, you're not, thinking straight. Someone steps in to relieve you for like a couple days, so you can do something for yourself.
We've had 1 or 2 of those moments, and we really have to engineer them. You know,
Right.
you have to really engineer this.
Strategize.
Yeah. No, but I totally get you. Respite is very important. My wife put up a post, when was it? Sometime earlier this year, on Facebook, and the amount of people who reached out to her, because it was one of those days. She wasn't really complaining about anything, but she was just, her hands were up in the air, and it was like, Lord, just put her hand today. And I mean, we got so many offers from wonderful human beings for respite. Bring the kids, bring the family, or take a little break, stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's what
So important.
It's very important, and people don't understand how when you are the grind every day, dealing with these situations, sometimes you're in so deep you just can't really, you begin to operate. You're like in a concentration camp where you start to believe that, okay, this is what it is now. This is where you are, right? So as human beings, we always conform, but it's important to come up for some air.
Yes.
Especially when you're still charting a way forward for humanity and for your family. It's important to come up for air sometimes. So respite care, yes.
Justin's mother is always by his grandparents. Always. And I mean, I don't think we ever thought of her as a caregiver before, but having this conversation, it's like, she's literally always there.
It makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, she's a caregiver in a lot of ways, even though they're not necessarily ill or disabled, just having
Just
that
have somebody.
support,
Yeah.
to cook and to make sure everything goes accordingly. The company as well, too, huh?
Yeah.
You know, it's important. I know that we touched on finances a little bit, but just to give people a proper idea, because I don't think we realize how much it adds up when you're caring for someone with special needs. What are your costs, for an example of your costs for Isaiah in a month?
Oh. You know, it's hard to kind of quantify that in a sense because it's not just the dollar value. It's not just the dollar value that you put on what he needs, but it's about the dollar that we lose.
The opportunity cost.
The opportunity cost. Those are very important costs. To not be able to take advantage of an opportunity because you're too tired, or maybe you have Isaiah. I mean, I tell you, Isaiah it just keeps going around and around and around.
That would
right?
drive me crazy.
Yeah.
Imagine you get up every day to deal with the same, and you feel trapped.
It's that opportunity cost, as Justin just pointed out. That's the real cost. You could hustle and you could find the money. You could find the money to do the other things if you have to. And as a matter of fact, those of us who are more economically well off could also hire a caregiver. Right? You could do all those things and you could just float away and go and do what you need to do. All you have to do is throw the money back home to deal with situations and to deal with the needs. Right? But the majority of people in Trinidad and Tobago do not have that.
Yeah.
I mean, we know of situations where the Cerebral Palsy Association, there we have a whole group of mothers, a lot of them single moms, right, who had to basically forego any opportunity to maybe earn an income because they're afraid to leave their kids with other people because other people take advantage of their kids.
Can I just say, my grandmother's last child had cerebral palsy, and she always tells us, well, not always, but she tells a story where she went to a meeting of, like you're saying, single, you know, the moms, right? And it was at Princess Elizabeth home. This is like a very long time ago. Yeah. So at that time, that was the only place they can go. And she went into this meeting with the mothers, and say it was like about 20 to 30 mothers, every single woman there, their husband had left them because they could not cope with having a child with cerebral palsy and the challenge and the stress and the just understanding and dealing with it. They couldn't handle it. And all their husbands had left them except my grandmother's husband. God bless his soul. Rest in peace. Yeah. And my grandmother said, that was the day she picked up and she walked out and she was like, you know what? They need the help more than I do. I have family support. And she stayed home.
Right.
She's a seamstress and she stayed home with him and she took care of him. He wasn't supposed to live past puberty because he wasn't able to, his body wasn't strong enough to experience that. So they warned her he wasn't going to make it. And he died on his 29 years compared to like 12.
Yeah.
And she cared for him on her own. But I mean, like you're saying, these are single mothers dealing with this. Imagine you don't even have a husband to help you.
That's very, very challenging. That's almost impossible.
Yeah.
It's impossible to think about it.
Yeah.
I didn't know what it was like. You know, Leonardo da Vinci has a saying, right? There are some people who get it. There are those who get it when you explain it to them, and there are those who will never get it. Before I had Isaiah, I have to say I would have been somewhere on those who get it when you explain it to those who just don't get it.
Yeah.
I was there, and I'll tell you why I was there. I mean, I have a cousin who had a boy who was flat out, he was what they consider a vegetable, right? I remember going with the family, we saw the baby, you know, and it was, okay, wow, sorry about that. 15 years later, running amok in the world, my mom called me, you know, he passed. I said, oh my, sorry, I couldn't even make the funeral, right? You're so busy.
Right.
I say that in inverted commas, right? You're so busy with your life. It was when I had Isaiah, I bounced her up in price, Matt. That was the first time I was able to say, T, tell me, what was really going on? What was that like for you?
Yeah.
And for a lot of us, it's not until the cows come to graze in our yard.
Yep.
Right? So I understand when people don't always get it, when people don't always understand. But I believe that by doing the work and constantly being an advocate for change and for people to understand, somebody else will be converted. And they may not have to wait until something like that reaches them in their own home. But I always say to people, if you live long enough, you escape bullets, and you live a life where you make it into old age with all your limbs and everything intact, one day you are going to need somebody to take care of you because you are going to start to decline.
Yeah.
You will become a person with a disability. Somebody will have to clean you and bathe you and feed you and push you around at their convenience. Understand that, right? Life is like that. We start off as babies needing everything, and if we live to old age, we will make that circle full way and come back to having somebody take care of us.
Once a man, twice a child.
Always.
Yeah.
We spoke about the state of the caregiving industry, how you're saying it, like for a lot of people, it's a hustle.
Yeah.
What do you think are some of the things that need to change in Trinidad to fix that problem?
That's a big question. I'll tell you my humble opinion what it is. Maybe just what James and they're doing right now is something that we really need. Because when I was in school, I went back to school actually since I had Isaiah. I went to do my master's.
Congrats.
Right?
You did
Yeah.
what?
I did my master's.
How much you trying to do?
I know. I did it was when I wanted to build these communities and stuff, right? I said, look, and then all of a sudden I saw this thing in the newspaper about, masters in creative design, entrepreneurship. It's kind of social enterprise type of masters, right? So I applied and I got through. One of the ideas, because we had a number of different projects that we had to do, in addition to our final project. And one of the projects was I suggested that we can have like a university. Let's call it a university.
Right.
But it's a service, it's for service-oriented organizations where people who cannot necessarily get the bigger jobs and who might be working in all of these service industries, even cloth stores, even in, attending to in geriatric homes, people can come in here to understand more about empathy and service.
Right.
What it means when somebody walks into the door. When somebody walks into the door, that's a customer. It doesn't mean that the whole world has to stop spinning, but there's a way to deal with that. You know what I mean? And I think it's the same way. Somebody walking into a geriatric home or a retirement home to offer care, you need to understand what that is about. You need to go through a certain amount of training to know that, listen, senility, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, dementia, all these things put people become angry to realize that they are losing all their faculties. They become angry, they lash out, they do a number of things. It's human beings you're talking about who were running the world, ruling, and all of a sudden they find themselves sitting down and having to wait on people to do things for them. They get angry about that, right? So I think a lot has to be done. I think that is an area that needs to be explored, developing a type of
just like an educational thing.
Yeah, and you must go through this before you enter a retirement home. You have to have a certificate. I think you're supposed to walk in there with a certificate saying that you have been through this 2-month program that helped you build empathy and understanding and know exactly what it is you're getting into.
So I think the answer to your question, Justin, is standardization and education. You're supposed to...
I like how she just makes it so
That was
simple.
so...
No.
She brings everything into the essence. Just now it was once a man, twice a child. Like going all the way around the world. So she has a way of just bringing it in like that. That's awesome.
We're unpacking it. And I'm just putting the
Put it
label
back
on the box. I'm putting the label on the box.
The package did quite nicely.
Thank you. But no, I completely get what you're saying, because I injured my left foot at a spin class a couple of years ago. And it's amazing how when you're completely able-bodied, you take everything for granted. And the minute something happens to you, you're like, oh my God, my life has changed completely. I can't do anything. I remember trying to get to work with this. I had a fracture boot on for a few months on crutches. And my office was 2 stories up and there was no elevator.
Wow.
I spent like 20 minutes with help getting up these stairs every friggin' morning to go to work. And I was like, how do people in a wheelchair or with a disability do it?
Exactly.
I couldn't go to the mall. Like, the escalator wasn't wide enough. The elevator was, and it was just like...
Everything was a problem.
Everything was a problem. And I was like, how do people with disabilities... No wonder you barely see people with disabilities out and about doing their errands and doing their... Because
they can't. They really can't. They just can't.
You mentioned that, there are people who can afford, and this is something that my grandmother always... Because, we're not a wealthy family, so my granny had to do it on her own, and the neighbor or her other kids would provide the respite care. But in terms of people who do have the resources, I know that actually getting care, having the money and being able to find good workers is a whole other story.
It is.
I know you mentioned earlier that you yourself had some negative experience with caregivers.
We did.
Shed some
I
light on
can,
that?
sure. As I said, my mom, she took a dive after my dad passed, and she started developing neurological problems. And these, escalated, she started having Parkinson's and rigidity and stuff in the legs and all these different things. So she started needing a lot of help. We were there with her after he passed, and but we had Isaiah as well. So it was quite a challenge having to deal with Isaiah and have my mom calling while, and I have to say it's my wife, She's a very gracious woman, who was attending to my mom, without dropping a beat while dealing with Isaiah. It was very, very frustrating and very...
Is she Superwoman?
She's my Superwoman.
Oh.
Okay? She's my Superwoman. I mean, so having to go through that with my mom, we decided that, look, we need some help inside of this house, right? So we started employing caregivers to come in. And that was a challenge all on its own, having to manage these different personalities. But more than that, it's about making sure that they do what they had to do. For my mom, it reached a stage where we could no longer stay in the house. And, well, my last son from my previous marriage, he came in and basically kind of was supervising the operation. So we had to leave with our family. So my mom stayed in the family home with him and with the other caregivers for about another year. Right? But when I go to visit, she would always be, Franco, I need to get out of here. You need to. But then coming down to the end, there was this one other caregiver who was basically staying there as well. She was staying there. She was there in the night. So we would have caregivers in the day to help out. But then from the time 6 o'clock in the evening, there's this one person there. And this one person started physically abusing my mom. And when I go to visit her, she would tell me what the lady is doing, and she would be crying, and I know my mom wasn't making this up, because the lady had a way she would always try to position herself to be there, to make sure that she don't say nothing. You pick up on these things, right? And that's when I started really accelerating, starting to look at homes, and then I started realizing, okay, some of them going to be weak. You have to sit down and wait on them to call. No, man, it can't be like this. The amount of homes we went through, but I still try to keep it within a geographical area, a geographic area where it would be convenient for me to be there all the time. We were already in St. Augustine, and then we heard about this place up Sombradora Hill in Maracas, St. Joseph, and we went up there, Brent's Manor, and that was it. We walked in, and for us, it was like, okay, this is it. This speaks. It has a language. It's talking to me. It's talking to me. I went to other homes, and you walk in there and there's nothing being said. Nothing being said.
Only the scent.
Yes. Oh, right. Oh, you got it. Yeah, the scent.
The scent will speak volumes.
That's right.
It won't be positive.
That's right. And that's all that you got. Yeah, absolutely. So this place, and that's where she's been ever since. That was it. I mean, I know, and I know that a lot of people go through this with their parents. It's very difficult. It's very challenging. It takes a toll. It compounds the situation when you are the only, in my case, I'm the only brother, the only family member here. And the rest of all my brothers are abroad. So, again, you have this slip between cup and lip where people believe that, everything's supposed to be perfect when it's not, right? So we had our challenges on a number of different levels, dealing with the caregiving aspect of it and all the other peripherals. And then having to deal with our son and his challenges. And then you have a husband and wife who would get at each other's throat every so often because of all the drama around. And that's how it is. And that can cause a lot of problems. Not just emotion, it's health problems as well. When you have to deal with these things. My wife must strain her back on about 4 occasions. Either having to catch my mom before she fall or some kind of thing, So it's very difficult. It's very challenging. My wife is a tiny lady.
She's so pretty. I actually know of people who are caring for parents, older persons. So say they're like in their 60s and their parent is in their 80s, and before you know it, the person in their 60s who is giving care passes away. Because that stress, constant stress, and the constant, like you were saying, anxiety. it takes a major toll. But on that point of trying to find care, I know on Age Caribbean's website under information and advice, there is a list of tips for when you're choosing a care home. So it's good to look through that, because in Trinidad we have no standards of quality control.
That's right.
So definitely check that out.
You were talking about, the abuse aspect. I'm trying to understand why that happens.
I'll tell you why I think it happens. When you have someone who is not trained, you see, okay, I put myself in that position. I was not trained to deal with my mom.
Right.
I also have little kids. There's a certain thing in me that is about now. It's about doing it, getting it done. And when you are faced with having to deal and care for someone else, it can be challenging, because when people start to get older and they feel trapped in their bodies and they feel angry and they lash out at people, they say things, they do things, right? They can make life very uncomfortable.
Right.
They can make themselves people that you don't want to be around. Okay? So it becomes a challenge for you to maintain your focus. You have a little family, you have a little boy with special needs, and that is you're trying to say, okay, you know what? This is the future here. I need to take care of this, right? You start to get very anxious and aggrieved. So somebody who is now coming from a home, let's just say a regular home where they may not have enough money and they're looking for a job. Yeah. Okay? So there's always that frustration there. And a lot of the women who work in caregiving are single moms, right? They have kids, they're single moms. They're trying to find a way to take care of their family as well. So they're leaving home with that stress and that pressure. They could be living in an environment that is constantly with a lot of conflict, right? They walk with this energy and they don't know that they're walking with this energy. They're learning to deal with things in a certain way because it's about self-preservation at the same time. So you walk into a home, you come to do your job, and you're trying to lift up somebody from the bed, and this person, you're feeling this person pushing back on you. You don't understand what is all this resistance about. You're trying to coax them out of it, and they're resisting, and you snap, you get angry, you get vexed, you're taking it personal. That's why I think it happens, because I too, like you, asked the question, why would people do that?
Yeah.
Why will you look at my mom and push my mom down on why will you do something like that? Right? So I tried to understand why that was. I went through my whole process because I tried to do that with Isaiah, because I think about Isaiah when I die in a home or somewhere where people might want to take advantage of him because he needs to be taken care of. And that's my fear. So I am constantly trying to put myself in other people's shoes to understand why they do that. And that is what I came up with. Yeah,
because I think it's interesting, like you and I or anybody might watch one of those videos and be like, well, this is crazy. How could this person do this? But what, like the level of insight you gave, it really illuminates how the people going, the caregivers in that situation, they're dealing with so much.
Yeah, I mean, and we talk about the caregiver stress and caregiver burnout in terms of older people, but also it happens with anyone. And I think it comes back to empathy, where we started this conversation. Yes, we need to, as a society, have empathy for persons with disability or illness, but we also need to have major empathy for the people caring for those people.
Definitely.
Because I mean, I've come into contact with persons with Alzheimer's, for instance, and when they catch about, it's cuss,
Of course.
It's kick and it's slap and it's this and it's that, and that's why, you would tend to find those persons very heavily medicated, just because the caregivers don't have the capacity to cope with that. They don't know.
True.
They don't know what to, and anybody in that position would not know what to do.
Exactly.
You need that training, and we also need that level of empathy, because like you said, some people are just doing it for a job. We tend to think that caregiving is somehow easy. You feed them, you clean them, you think that's it. No, but you forget this is not a thing you're taking care of. This is a person with a personality going through their own issues. You're bringing your issues to the table. And there's some people who are in it who really shouldn't be.
That's right. Absolutely.
I don't think I could be a caregiver. I tell my mother, listen, I'm going to just make some money for you because you're going to know whom.
No, absolutely. You have to be true to yourself to understand and know what you can deal with, Because as I said, if it is that families, husband and wives, check out this, who came together in love to get married and have kids, and would, due to the stress of having a child with special needs, they can be broken apart, right? Think about that link just getting shattered because of that. It's because of people's inability to always cope.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody has different thresholds with what they can deal with. You know what I mean? So we have to understand all of that when we're looking into caregiving for either persons with special needs or people in a retirement home. It's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. And I think it's important at this point to mention that if you are listening to this and you yourself are a caregiver and you are feeling like you're not doing a good job, you know, I've seen people cry because they don't think they're taking care of their parents and they don't know how to cope. It's not your fault.
It's not your fault.
You're not a horrible child, not a horrible parent.
No.
This is something it's human. We all go through it and we all need the support.
Yeah.
Definitely.
But I have to say, Francis and your lovely wife, congratulations.
Thank you.
It's amazing that first of all you guys are managing, and not only have you managed, but you've created an opportunity to help others out of this.
Yeah, so how can people support Cause and Effect?
All right, well, that's a really good question, you know. First, you could pull out your checkbooks, right? I mean, that's the obvious.
Dollar bills, yeah.
No, that's the obvious. No, but I'll tell you what, and I'll just kind of let you know, because we believe too in that we need to help ourselves and that we want people to really be able to help us. We don't particularly like the charity model, so we are now forming a for-profit organization,
Right.
which will feed the work of Cause and Effect. We hope to make a product that will get a lot of popular appeal. When you buy this product, you will buy this product because you like it, you will enjoy it, and you know in the back of your mind you're also helping a non-profit organization do the work of transforming our societies.
Right.
That's
Right?
the best model to go with.
And that's how I really want people to help us. Other than that, if you want to help us now, you could cut a check, you could write a check to Cause and Effect organization. We are making a feature film. We've been making this film since we started, but really and truly, I made 2 films before. Right? And I had to compromise. And like everything else, you have to compromise in your production to get the job done. The first film won an award at the film festival in 2009.
What's the name of that film?
The Ghost of Hinking Estate.
Oh,
And then
okay.
Radica was another film that I did with Trent Tobago
I
Film
know
Company,
Radica.
right?
Yeah.
So what happened is, this film that I want to make is it's a love story between Isaiah and myself. It's about all that we've spoken about here. It's all about the challenges. It's about my constant devotion and dedication to trying to change the world for him and for others like him. We started filming, we did some interviews, but it's the time, it's the money. If we had the money to do it, if we got the investment we're looking for, we could say, all right, let's just lock this down. We could pay our bills. We could do what we had to do. Let's just shoot this film and get it out. But it took a while for the true essence of what it is I wanted to say to come to me. I wanted it to be something that will be, that every person who is coming up with a child with special needs who has never experienced this will be able to look at this film and feel some sort of a connection. They will feel respite in their soul and in their heart. Right. If not that I could come and take care of your child, but you will feel like, I'm not in this alone.
Exactly.
So that's what this film is about. So it took
to have
a while.
longevity.
Yes, real longevity. You see how she wraps it up? And
Good packaging.
Yeah, good
Thank you.
packaging.
Francis, thank you very much. You've given us a lot of insight. I feel like I understand this whole thing so much better now.
Justin was so lost before you came.
I was very lost.
He was like, can you please do this whole interview?
So people can check out the website, social media.
causeandeffect.co. From there, you'll get links to our YouTube channel. You'll see all the work that we do there. You'll see our Facebook page. We have we call it a sister Facebook page, which my wife runs, which is called a Very Special Disabilities Forum. And she features right now it's the 12 lionesses, right? So 1 lioness a month, all females who have done something for disabilities and persons with special needs. We celebrate 1 a month for the next 12 months type thing. So yeah, and I want to say thank you for this opportunity to come and talk, to share my experiences. And my experiences, our experiences, because I don't think that we are unique in any way. I believe we are all the same. We are all humans. We all go through the same thing. Some of us just more prepared to talk about it than others. So I want to say thank you for this opportunity to unpack, right? This stuff that Rochelle so eloquently repacked
Yeah.
at the end of every unpacking, right? So it was indeed a pleasure and an honor to be here.
Well, you're very welcome, and thank you for joining us and
Yes.
giving us your time.
Amazing. I mean, and I think that this will probably not be the last episode because we're looking forward to that film, and
Yeah,
we would love
definitely.
to get in on that promotion as well.
Beautiful.
So let us know.
Yeah, so check out Cause and Effect. We're going to put all the links in the description for the show, so everybody, go to the website, check out the Facebook page, check out the sister site, get educated.
Get educated, and you're not alone if you're caring for someone. You're not alone. Thank you so much, Francis.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.